Sagittarius, you can't stay any longer. Destiny is calling. A new frequency is here. Hello, beloved soul. This is Sophia, and you are listening to Zodiac Wisdom, the place where the stars do not only speak of fate, but where they guide you gently back to your own heart. If you are a Sagittarius and these words have found you, know that it is not by accident. You were brought here, led by something deeper than curiosity, called by a voice your soul has been waiting to hear. Can you feel it? That quiet unease that has been rising within you lately, the restlessness you cannot explain, the sense that the walls around you, once comforting, are now too narrow for who you are becoming. Even the version of yourself you've worked so hard to preserve suddenly feels too small, as if your soul is outgrowing its own skin. Sagittarius, this is not rejection, not loss, not punishment. It is destiny speaking. It is the whisper that says, you can no longer stay where you are. You are the archer of the zodiac, born to seek, to move, to explore horizons others fear to approach. And right now, the bow within your chest is trembling, ready to release its arrow into a new sky. What you are hearing today is not meant to change you, but to remind you of who you truly are, and to awaken the courage you already carry. For the journey ahead will not require you to hold on. It will ask you to let go. Gate 1: The silent cracks. Sagittarius, if you have been paying attention to the subtle rhythms of your days, you may have noticed that things which once brought you comfort now only leave you restless. The coffee shop you used to sit in every morning, that once felt like a sanctuary, now feels too noisy, too crowded, as if the air itself does not belong to you anymore. The friendships you once cherished, the conversations that once made you laugh, have started to feel repetitive, shallow, even exhausting. You smile out of habit, but the warmth no longer rises in your chest. And late at night, when the world quiets down, there is a voice within you whispering that you can no longer pretend, that you cannot keep living as if you fit perfectly into a life that has already grown too tight. These cracks are not always loud or dramatic. Often they come in silence, in the small moments no one else notices. You may be sitting at a dinner table surrounded by people you've known for years, and suddenly the laughter feels hollow. You find yourself zoning out, eyes staring into your glass of water, asking quietly, "Why am I still here?" Or you may be walking the familiar streets of your neighborhood, streets you once loved, and suddenly the buildings look foreign. The path feels heavy under your feet. Nothing outside has truly changed, yet everything inside you is shifting. This is how destiny begins to stir, subtly, quietly, almost invisibly. It does not arrive with thunder or lightning at first. It arrives as a dissonance between what you see and what you feel. You notice yourself withdrawing from group chats, ignoring invitations not out of anger, but out of a truth you cannot explain. You no longer resonate with the same rhythm. It feels as though your spirit is stretching beyond the walls of your current life, yearning for more air, more space, more meaning. Many Sagittarius souls describe this as a physical sensation, almost like a restlessness in the body. You might feel it as an ache in your chest when you sit too long in a place that no longer serves you, or as a sudden surge of energy at 2 a.m., when you should be asleep but your heart is racing, your mind envisioning distant places you have not yet touched. You may even notice your dreams changing. Images of open roads, airports, new horizons appearing again and again, as though the unconscious mind is preparing you for departure. And yet, because these cracks are silent, it is easy to dismiss them. You tell yourself, maybe I'm just tired. Maybe I'm ungrateful. Maybe I should just appreciate what I have. But deep down, Sagittarius, you know this is not about ingratitude. It is about truth. Your soul has always been a seeker, a wanderer, a student of the great mysteries. To stay too long in what has already been learned, to keep yourself confined to walls that no longer inspire you, is to deny your very essence. Think back to the times in your life when you have felt most alive. Was it when you were safe, repeating the same patterns every day? Or was it when you dared to step into the unknown? When you moved to a new city, began a new adventure, traveled with only a suitcase and faith? That spark, that feeling of expansion is what your soul is craving again. And the cracks you feel now, in your relationships, in your routines, in your sense of belonging, are simply the signs that the chapter you are in is ending. Let me give you an example. Imagine a Sagittarius who has been working at the same job for years. The pay is stable, the environment is familiar, and everyone tells them they should be grateful. But every morning when they sit at their desk, a heaviness creeps in. They look out the window and wonder what life would be like beyond those walls. Their performance starts to decline not because they are lazy but because their soul is no longer engaged. This is a silent crack. It is not a scandal, not a dramatic collapse, but a quiet unraveling from within. Or picture a Sagittarius in a relationship that has lasted a long time. Their partner is kind, stable, perhaps even deeply devoted. But lately, conversations feel scripted, intimacy feels forced, and silence between them feels suffocating rather than safe. They still care, but caring is no longer enough to keep their spirit alive. They begin to crave something different, not necessarily someone different, but a frequency of connection that feels more alive, more real, more aligned with who they are becoming. That longing is another silent crack. These cracks are sacred, Sagittarius. They are not evidence that you are failing. They are evidence that you are evolving. Just as a snake must shed its skin to grow, just as a seed must break open to release new life, you too must allow the old layers to fracture so that the truer version of yourself can step forward. But here is the paradox. The world around you may not understand. People may look at your life and think it is perfect. They may not see why you feel restless, why you would want to leave something so stable. They might even call you reckless, impulsive, irresponsible. But deep down you know what they see is only the surface. They cannot hear the whispers inside your soul, the subtle cracks forming in the foundation. And so, you keep it to yourself, smiling on the outside while feeling like you are dissolving on the inside. Sagittarius, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not broken for feeling this way. You are not ungrateful for longing for more. You are not irresponsible for wanting to move beyond what once was. You are simply aligning with your nature. Your soul is restless not because it is lost, but because it knows exactly where it wants to go. The cracks are not destroying you. They are guiding you. You see, life rarely ends one chapter with a clean break. More often, endings arrive through these quiet signs. The friendships that fade without conflict, the jobs that no longer inspire, the hobbies that lose their joy, the spaces that once held you but now feel foreign. These are not failures. They are signals. They are the language of destiny, calling you to notice that the soil you are standing on has given you all it can. And so, Sagittarius, when you notice these silent cracks, when you feel that sudden emptiness in a crowded room, when your laughter feels forced, when your dreams keep pointing to new roads, do not ignore them. They are your soul's compass, gently turning you toward the horizon. The truth is, you can no longer stay in places that shrink you. You can no longer pretend to belong where your energy no longer flows. The silent cracks are simply showing you that your time in this chapter is complete. And what lies ahead is not punishment but promise. The horizon is waiting, and your arrow is trembling to be released. Gate 2: The burden of carrying others. Sagittarius, one of the greatest struggles you face in this life is not only the search for truth, but the weight you carry for others along the way. You have always been the kind of soul who could see beyond the surface. Where others saw laughter, you noticed the hidden sadness in someone's eyes. Where others believed the excuses, you sensed the quiet despair behind them. You have been the friend, the partner, the child, the colleague who carries not only your own story but the stories of those around you, gathering them like firewood on your back, believing that somehow it is your duty to keep everyone warm. For a long time this role made sense. It aligned with your natural generosity, with your desire to protect, to guide, to give. People leaned on you because they knew you were strong enough to handle it, adventurous enough to keep moving forward, wise enough to see the bigger picture. They came to you with their pain, and you opened your arms. They came to you with their confusion, and you offered clarity. They came to you with their fears, and you lit a torch in the darkness. And each time you gave, you felt useful, purposeful, even noble. But over time, Sagittarius, the noble role begins to turn into a burden. Because while you carry everyone else's weight, who is carrying yours? While you are tending to their wounds, who is tending to the quiet ache in your own chest? While you are holding up their world, who is making sure yours doesn't collapse? This is the silent truth so many Sagittarius souls live with. You are celebrated for your strength, for your endless capacity to give, but few notice the exhaustion that hides beneath your smile. Few recognize how often you have gone to bed with tears unshed, with your body drained, your spirit weary, yet your lips whispering, "I'll keep going because they need me." Let's imagine this clearly. Perhaps you are in a relationship where you are the healer, the encourager, the one always providing reassurance. When your partner feels insecure, you pour out love. When they doubt themselves, you lift them with affirmations. When they are lost, you become their compass. But when the roles are reversed, when you are the one who feels unsure, when you need reassurance, there is silence. You realize you have built a dynamic where you are the giver and they are the receiver, and somewhere along the way your needs were lost. Or perhaps you are the Sagittarius who holds your family together. You are the one who remembers birthdays, who checks in when someone is silent, who sacrifices your own plans to be there when the family needs you. And yet, when you are the one who is hurting, when you are the one who longs for someone to say, "How are you really doing?" there is no echo, no one thinking to ask. Because they are so used to you being the strong one, the responsible one, the one who doesn't falter. Or maybe it is at work. You are the employee who always steps up, who takes on the extra project, who mentors the new hire, who stays late to make sure everything runs smoothly. Your boss praises your reliability, your colleagues thank you for your help, but inside resentment begins to build. Not because you dislike helping, but because you realize no one ever thinks to ease your load. They simply assume Sagittarius will handle it, because Sagittarius always does. Do you see, beloved soul? Carrying others is beautiful, but it can also become a prison. When your identity becomes tied to being the strong one, the wise one, the healer, you forget that you are also human. That you too need rest, that you too need space to crumble, that you too deserve to be held. And here lies the deeper wound. Sometimes you keep carrying because you are afraid of what will happen if you stop. You fear that if you put down the weight, everything will fall apart. The relationship will crumble. The family will fracture. The workplace will descend into chaos. And so you convince yourself that it is better to sacrifice your own freedom than to watch everything else collapse. But Sagittarius, do you realize the cost? Every time you stay only to hold things together, a piece of your soul grows dimmer. Every time you silence your truth just to keep peace, your fire flickers lower. Every time you abandon your own dreams to carry someone else's, you step further away from the horizon that was meant for you. Destiny is calling you now, not to abandon love, not to turn cold, but to release the burden that was never meant to be yours alone. You are not here to be the eternal firewood for others. You are here to be a flame that burns brightly, that lights your own path, and in doing so inspires others to light theirs. Caring others does not mean saving them, and saving them does not always mean healing them. Sometimes the most healing thing you can do is to let them carry their own weight, to allow them the dignity of their own journey. This is difficult, I know. You fear being called selfish. You fear being misunderstood. You fear being abandoned if you no longer play the role of rescuer. But listen, Sagittarius. The people who truly belong in your life will not leave simply because you choose yourself. They will rise to meet you. They will learn to carry themselves. They will honor your boundaries, even if it takes time. And those who fall away were never truly aligned to begin with. Remember this. You were not born to be a crutch. You were born to be a guide, a seeker, a teacher by example. And the example you are being asked to set now is not how much you can endure, but how courageously you can honor your own truth. There is freedom in realizing that not every room deserves your healing. Not every relationship requires your sacrifice. Not every problem needs your fire. Sometimes the most sacred act of love is walking away from the role of savior and allowing yourself to simply be, to breathe, to expand, to follow the path that feels alive to your soul, even if others do not understand. And here is the miracle. When you finally set down the burdens that do not belong to you, you discover how light you truly are. You begin to remember what it feels like to run, to dream, to laugh without heaviness. Your step becomes quicker, your eyes brighter, your energy magnetic. Because no longer are you weighed down by obligations that were never yours to begin with. You are free to be Sagittarius again, the wild spirit, the philosopher, the adventurer, the seeker of higher truths. So Sagittarius, ask yourself now, whose burdens are you carrying that were never yours? Which relationships keep you bound to the role of healer, while your own heart grows weary? Which spaces require you to shrink, to sacrifice, to silence yourself just to maintain peace? And most importantly, are you willing to put them down? The answer may terrify you at first. It may feel like betrayal. But in truth, it is liberation. Because the destiny calling you forward cannot be reached while your arms are full of everyone else's weight. You must travel lighter. You must let go. Gate 3, the moment of awakening. Sagittarius, there comes a moment in every seeker's life when the cracks can no longer be ignored, when the burden of carrying others becomes too heavy, and suddenly a quiet but undeniable truth rises from within. I cannot stay here any longer. This moment often arrives unexpectedly. It does not always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it comes in the middle of an ordinary day. You may be washing dishes, answering emails, or sitting in traffic when suddenly the thought hits you. Not a passing whim, but a knowing so deep it feels like it has always been there. This chapter is over. I must begin again. This awakening often feels like both grief and liberation. Grief because you realize how much of yourself you've poured into the places you are leaving behind. Liberation because for the first time in a long time you feel honest. There is no more pretending, no more shrinking, no more clinging to what does not fit. Your soul has spoken, and once the soul speaks, there is no silencing it. Think of the butterfly, Sagittarius. Before it breaks from its cocoon, there is a long period of stillness, a time when it looks as though nothing is happening. But inside, transformation is at work. The same is true for you. For months, maybe years, you have been unraveling silently inside, even while keeping up appearances for the world. And now the cocoon is cracking. The wings are forming. The old shell can no longer contain who you are becoming. This moment of awakening does not always arrive with clarity. In fact, it often begins with confusion. You may not know exactly where you're going. You may not have a plan, a destination, or a clear path forward. All you know is that you cannot stay. And that, Sagittarius, is enough. Awakening is not about having all the answers. It is about finally telling yourself the truth. This is not my home anymore. For example, imagine a Sagittarius who has spent years in a long-term relationship. They have tried again and again to reignite the spark, to forgive, to endure. But one day they wake up, look across the bed at their partner and realize, I am no longer in love and staying here would be a betrayal of both of us. It does not mean the love was wasted. It does not mean the years were meaningless. It simply means the soul has outgrown this chapter, and a new one must begin. Or picture a Sagittarius in a career that once thrilled them but now feels like a cage. They once loved the challenge, the growth, the recognition. But now the thought of going to the office fills them with dread. One afternoon, while staring at a spreadsheet or answering yet another unfulfilling email, the thought drops in. If I keep doing this for another 10 years, I will lose myself. That thought is the awakening. It is not self-doubt. It is self-truth. This awakening often carries fear. You may wonder, what if I make the wrong choice? What if I regret leaving? What if I disappoint everyone? But Sagittarius, the greater fear is not in leaving. It is in staying. Because staying in a life that no longer fits is the surest way to betray your destiny. And you, of all signs, were not born to betray your calling. You were born to walk boldly into the unknown, guided by intuition, faith, and fire. And here is something important. Awakening is not about anger. You don't need to hate the people or places you are leaving behind. You don't need to prove they were wrong or paint them as villains. Often, the deepest awakening comes with compassion. I love you, but I cannot stay. I honor this place, but I must move on. I thank this chapter, but it has finished its work. That kind of truth is not destructive, it is sacred. In these moments, life begins to send signs that you are on the right path. Perhaps a book falls into your hands at just the right time, speaking the words you've been afraid to admit. Perhaps a stranger says something in passing that feels like a message directly to your soul. Perhaps opportunities begin to appear. An invitation to travel, a new job opening, a sudden chance to move, that echo the inner knowing you've been feeling. This is how the universe conspires with you, Sagittarius. Once you awaken, once you admit the truth to yourself, the path ahead begins to reveal itself piece by piece. You do not need to know the whole journey. You only need to take the first step. But let us be honest, the first step is often the hardest. It may mean ending a relationship that has been your identity. It may mean leaving a job that has been your security. It may mean walking away from a community that has been your comfort. And you may feel as though you are stepping into nothingness, into a void. But Sagittarius, that void is not empty. It is fertile. It is the place where your next chapter will be born. Think of it like this. When an archer draws back the bow, the arrow feels tension, resistance, the pull backward. For a moment, it feels as though it is being dragged in the wrong direction. But that tension is necessary because without it, the arrow cannot fly. Your awakening may feel like tension now, like being pulled away from everything familiar. But that pull is only preparing you for flight. Soon you will be released, and you will soar farther than you ever imagined. And so, Sagittarius, the moment of awakening is here. It is not loud, but it is undeniable. It may come with tears. It may come with trembling hands. But it will also come with a strange sense of peace, because even in your fear you will know. This is right. This is true. This is my soul speaking, and I will not ignore it anymore. From this moment forward, life will never look the same. You will no longer laugh at what does not feel real. You will no longer sit at tables that drain you. You will no longer force yourself to stay in houses that feel like cages. The awakening makes you brave, because once you see the truth, you cannot unsee it. And here, in the fire of your awakening, something extraordinary begins. You realize that leaving is not abandonment, it is alignment. You realize that choosing yourself is not selfish, it is sacred. You realize that what you are leaving behind is not wasted. It has served its purpose, and now it is time to move on. Sagittarius, this is the beginning of your becoming. This is the sacred threshold where the old dissolves and the new begins. You are awakening not just to leave but to live. And the world, though it may not understand yet, will be brighter because of the light you are about to carry forward. Gate for the call of destiny. Sagittarius, once the awakening has touched your soul, once you've admitted the truth you can no longer ignore, life begins to change in ways that feel both terrifying and exhilarating. You have released the burden of carrying others, you've recognized the fracture in your spirit, and you've said to yourself, I cannot stay here any longer. But now comes the question that lingers at the edge of every sleepless night and every quiet morning. If I leave, where am I going? This is where destiny begins to whisper. Not in thunder, not in the language of certainty, but in the subtle ways the universe communicates with a soul brave enough to listen. The call of destiny does not arrive with a neatly drawn map or a detailed plan. Instead, it comes as a feeling, a pull in the chest, a stirring in the gut, a magnetic knowing that there is somewhere you must go, even if you cannot yet name it. For Sagittarius, this call is always tied to expansion. You are the sign of horizons, of truth-seeking, of journeys that stretch the spirit beyond the limits of the known. And so when destiny calls you, it often comes disguised as restlessness. The job that once felt secure now feels suffocating. The town you've always lived in suddenly feels too small. The circle of friends you've known forever begins to feel like a room with no windows. Nothing is wrong with these places or people, but your soul has outgrown them. Think of the archer again, Sagittarius. Your bow has been strung, your arrow drawn back. The tension has been building. And now, destiny is the moment of release. You are being launched into a wider sky, a broader horizon, a new realm of truth that only you can discover. Let's ground this in real life. Imagine a Sagittarius who has spent years working in a stable, but uninspiring career. They've saved money, built a reputation, kept everyone around them reassured. But then one day they realize their soul feels starved. The thought of spending another decade doing the same work makes their chest tighten. Destiny calls not through logic, but through a quiet insistence. There is more for you. Maybe it takes the form of an opportunity to travel abroad, to study something new, or to start a business they've dreamed about but never dared to pursue. The details don't matter, the energy does. The energy says, expand, grow, step beyond what you've known. Or picture a Sagittarius in love. They've been in relationships where they were the healer, the giver, the one who poured out endless fire to keep the other warm. But now destiny calls them toward a different kind of love, one that does not ask them to shrink but to rise. Perhaps it's a partner who meets them with equal strength, or perhaps it's the sacred solitude that allows them to finally meet themselves. Either way, destiny is asking them to leave behind old patterns of endurance and step into relationships that honor their truth. Sometimes the call of destiny is literal. A city you've never been to keeps appearing in conversation. A country you've always wanted to visit suddenly feels urgent. A new community or field of study pulls you in with curiosity too strong to ignore. Sagittarius, you are ruled by Jupiter, planet of expansion and higher wisdom, so your destiny often involves movement. Not always physical, but always spiritual. To answer destiny's call is to trust the pull of your curiosity, to believe that the horizon is not a threat, but an invitation. But here's the paradox. Destiny will rarely feel convenient. In fact, it often feels inconvenient, even reckless. Leaving the stable job, ending the long-term relationship, moving away from the familiar, it can seem irrational to those watching you. They may say, why would you risk everything? Why can't you just be content with what you have? And yet, deep down, the greater risk is staying. Because staying means abandoning your soul. And that is a cost you can no longer afford. Sagittarius, the call of destiny is also the call of faith. It asks you to leap without knowing where you will land. It asks you to believe in a bridge before you can see it. It asks you to trust that your soul's longing is not foolish but sacred. And the truth is, you've always known this. Haven't you noticed that every time you've taken a leap in the past, doors have opened? That every time you followed your intuition, no matter how strange it seemed, something beautiful eventually unfolded? That is not coincidence. That is your alignment with destiny. The call of destiny will also bring synchronicities. Numbers repeating, dreams that feel too vivid to ignore. People who arrive at just the right time with the right message. These are not random. These are the universe's way of saying, keep going. You're on the right path. You are not walking alone. Even if others don't understand, unseen forces are guiding you. And here's something tender. Destiny does not demand you to be fearless. You can be terrified and still answer. You can cry, hesitate, doubt, and still say yes. Courage does not mean the absence of fear. It means choosing to move forward even while afraid. And Sagittarius, your soul was born with courage woven into its very fabric. So, what does it look like to answer this call? Sometimes it is a grand leap. Quitting the job, buying the plane ticket, saying yes to the adventure. Other times it is quieter. Setting boundaries, choosing rest, starting to write the book you've been hiding inside you. The form doesn't matter. What matters is the energy. Destiny calls you not toward what looks impressive to others, but toward what feels alive to your soul. And here's the gift. Once you answer, once you say yes, life begins to rearrange itself. People who no longer align drift away. Opportunities that match your new frequency appear. Even obstacles that once felt insurmountable suddenly dissolve or transform into stepping stones. It's as though the moment you align with your truth, the universe rushes to meet you halfway. Sagittarius, the call of destiny is not a demand, it is an invitation. You are free to say no, to stay in the familiar, to continue carrying the weight that is not yours. But if you do, you will always feel the quiet ache, the restless whisper. There was more for you. And that whisper will follow you until you are brave enough to listen. But if you say yes, if you dare to trust the voice in your chest, if you step into the unknown, the rewards will be beyond anything you can imagine. Not because life will suddenly be easy, but because it will finally be yours. The love you find, the work you create, the places you discover, they will resonate with the deepest part of who you are. And that resonance is the essence of destiny. The alignment between your soul and your path. So Sagittarius, listen closely. The call is here. It is not in the distance, it is already inside you. That tug you feel, that dream you cannot forget, that vision you keep postponing. These are not distractions. They are instructions. They are your destiny, asking if you are ready to begin. And though the leap may feel terrifying, remember this. The horizon has always belonged to you. The unknown has always been your home. And destiny has always been waiting patiently for the moment you were ready to answer. Conclusion: stepping into the new horizon. Sagittarius, as we arrive at this closing moment together, I want you to take a breath and feel how far you've come. You have looked honestly at the cracks within. You've acknowledged the courage it takes to awaken. And you've heard the unmistakable whisper of destiny calling you forward. What once felt like a burden now reveals itself as a turning point. You are not leaving out of anger or rejection. You are leaving because your soul has grown, and it cannot fit into the old shape anymore. The road ahead may feel uncertain. And yes, there may be nights when you question if you're strong enough. But Sagittarius, you were born for horizons, for exploration, for freedom. You've never belonged in cages. Every step you take now is not about abandoning your past, but about honoring your future. The people, places, and versions of yourself that you are releasing, they were sacred, they carried you here. But now it is time to bless them, and then walk forward lighter, freer, truer. And know this: you are not alone in this journey. The universe, your guides, your own soul, they are walking with you. The synchronicities, the small signs, the quiet encouragements, they are proof that destiny is already making space for you. All you need to do is trust the first step. So let today be the beginning. Write the words you've been holding back. Say yes to the dream you've kept waiting. Allow yourself to believe that what is leaving is only clearing space for what is meant to arrive. This is not an ending. It is a homecoming. Sagittarius, destiny is not far away. It is already inside you, alive in the fire of your spirit. Trust it. Follow it. Live it. Thank you, beloved soul, for sharing this moment with me. I'm Sophia, and this is Zodiac Wisdom. If these words touched your heart, I invite you to subscribe and stay with us, so we can continue walking this path of healing and awakening together. Until next time, may your steps be brave, may your horizon be wide, and may your soul always guide you home.